Jake came across an abandoned Mustang, its rusted exterior nearly swallowed by the surrounding overgrowth. Intrigued but cautious, he approached the vehicle, its windows covered in grime and fog. Gently pushing aside the vines, he peered inside, hoping to uncover its mysteries, only to be confronted with a sight that would haunt him forever. His heart raced as he realized the horrifying discovery hidden within the car's interior. Jake whispered, "What the heck?" as he wiped a grimy window with his sleeve. Inside the car, he saw several suitcases, some slashed open with their contents spilling out. Among the scattered items, he noticed children's clothing and toys, along with adult belongings, leading him to believe the suitcases belonged to a family. But there was something else, something unsettling. The car's keys were still in the ignition, and a woman's purse sat abandoned on the passenger seat. It was clear that whoever had been in the car had left in a hurry. An unsettling feeling washed over Jake as he wondered what had happened to the family. Driven by curiosity, he opened the passenger door. Jake sifted through the woman's purse and found a wallet with several credit cards, each bearing different names. As he dug deeper, his gaze landed on something that made his stomach drop. A photo of a baby. The baby in the picture looked almost identical to Jake when he was an infant. Jake carefully took the picture out of the wallet and flipped it over, hoping for a clue written on the back, but there was nothing. He returned the photo to the wallet, though he didn't put the wallet back in the purse. Despite the fear gripping him, Jake felt compelled to look deeper. Maybe one of the other suitcases would hold the answers. He slid the wallet into his back pocket and opened the back seat door. Pulling out all the suitcases, he placed them on the ground, eager to open them. He knew he was tampering with evidence, but he couldn't bring himself to care. The baby picture had triggered something deep within him, despite the fact that his parents were both alive and well. At first glance, the clothing inside the suitcases seemed normal, but the more Jake examined them, the more he realized they were all outdated. Some of the brands once popular were now nearly forgotten, having been fashionable about 30 years ago. As he picked up an old-looking shirt, something unexpected slipped out of it. A small agenda fell from the shirt and landed in the grass. Jake picked it up and began flipping through its pages. Inside, he found a list of birthdays and appointments. One entry caught his eye: family vacation for Tom's birthday, circled on a random Saturday with a location written beneath. Jake's eyes widened as he realized the car had likely been headed to his hometown before it ended up in these woods. This revelation deeply unsettled Jake, and he knew it was time to go to the police. Something terrible must have happened to this family. He left the suitcases on the ground and returned the wallet to the purse, but not before taking out the baby picture once again. There was one more thing he had to do. Jake hurried to the police station. "Hi, I'm here to report, I found an abandoned car," he told the officer at the front desk. Unsure how to explain what he had discovered since he hadn't witnessed any actual crime, he fumbled with his words. Fortunately, abandoned cars always raise suspicion, so the officer asked for the location and assured Jake that officers would be sent to investigate. Jake left his phone number with the officer, but he didn't mind. He was just relieved to be free to go. He made sure to explain what he had done and what he had found to avoid any confusion about why his fingerprints were all over the car and suitcases. As he walked out of the station, his adrenaline was still racing, and he hurried home, eager to process everything that had just happened. At home, Jake couldn't shake the image of the baby picture and its unsettling significance. He sat on his couch, staring at the photograph, his mind swirling with questions. The resemblance between him and the baby was uncanny, leaving him with a deep sense of unease. As the hours passed, his curiosity intensified, and he realized there was only one place he could turn for answers. Jake decided to visit his parents, hoping they could help ease his unease. He grabbed his keys and left the house, the baby picture securely tucked in his pocket. The drive to his childhood home was filled with memories, but his thoughts kept returning to the mysterious photograph. As he pulled into his parents' driveway, he took a deep breath, bracing himself for the conversation that lay ahead. As they talked, Jake brought up the abandoned car he had found in the forest. "You won't believe what I stumbled upon today," he began, recounting the eerie scene. His parents listened closely, their expressions growing more serious with each detail. "Why would someone just leave everything behind like that?" Jake wondered aloud, watching their faces for any sign of recognition or concern. A strange tension filled the room, an unspoken sense of something ominous hanging in the air. Jake handed his parents the baby picture, watching intently for their reactions. "Have you seen this before?" he asked, passing it to his mother. She took it cautiously, her eyes scanning the photo, while his father leaned in for a closer look, his brow furrowing. Jake's heart raced as he waited for their response, hoping for some clue or explanation. The silence that followed only deepened his growing anxiety. Jake caught a brief flicker of recognition in his mother's eyes, confirming his suspicions. For a moment, her expression softened, as though a memory had resurfaced. "Mom, do you know something about this?" Jake pressed, trying to make eye contact. She quickly looked away, her face reverting to a neutral mask. "It's probably just a coincidence," she said dismissively, but Jake wasn't convinced. That fleeting look told him there was more to the story. Jake's mother quickly dismissed his questions about the baby picture. "It's just an old photo, Jake. Don't read too much into it," she said, her tone firm yet evasive. Jake noticed her discomfort, her eyes avoiding his while his father remained silent, staring at the floor. Frustrated and unconvinced, Jake knew there was more to uncover. He decided not to push them further that night, but knew he needed to come up with another plan. Sensing his mother was hiding something, Jake decided to investigate on his own. He left his parents' house, determination driving every step. The baby picture still haunted him, its mysteries unresolved. He knew he had to dig deeper, but where to begin? The night was still young, and he had time. As he drove home, his mind raced, formulating a plan to uncover the truth without relying on his parents' help. That night, unable to sleep, Jake dug through old family albums. He spread them across his living room floor, flipping through pages filled with memories. The baby picture he had found in the car haunted him, and he hoped to find a clue in these old photos. Hours passed as he compared images, searching for any connection. His eyes grew heavy, but he couldn't stop. He needed answers. Jake compared the baby picture to his own childhood photos, and the resemblance was undeniable. The same chubby cheeks, the same bright eyes. It was like looking at a picture of himself. His heart raced as he laid the photos side by side, stunned by the striking similarities. The more he stared, the more the connection became apparent. This mystery was quickly growing more personal and perplexing by the minute. The striking similarities left Jake with more questions than answers. He sat back, overwhelmed by the implications. Why did this baby look so much like him? What had happened to the family in the Mustang? He knew he couldn't stop now. There were too many loose ends, too many mysteries demanding resolution. With a heavy heart, he made the decision to take his investigation to the next level the following day. Determined to solve the mystery, Jake visited the local library the next day. He stepped into the quiet building, the musty smell of old books filling the air. Approaching the librarian at the desk, he asked, "Can you help me find records of missing families from about 30 years ago?" The librarian nodded and led him to a section with archived newspapers and public records. Jake thanked her and began his search, hoping for a breakthrough. Jake combed through records of missing families from 30 years ago, sifting through stacks of old newspapers and dusty files, scanning each page for any clue. Hours passed, but he refused to give up. The baby picture haunted him, driving him to keep searching. Finally, a headline caught his eye: "Family vanishes during vacation trip." His pulse quickened as he read the article, hoping it would hold the answers he so desperately needed. Jake found an old newspaper article about a family that vanished during a vacation trip. The article detailed the mysterious disappearance of a couple and their baby, last seen driving a Mustang, matching the description of the car Jake had found in the forest. His heart raced as he read the details, feeling an unsettling connection to the family. This discovery brought him one step closer to uncovering the truth. The family's last known location was eerily close to where Jake had found the Mustang. The article mentioned a dense forest near a small town, matching the area Jake had explored. This can't be a coincidence, he thought, growing more convinced with each passing sentence that the abandoned car was somehow connected to this missing family. He quickly scribbled down notes, determined to dig deeper into the family's history. The parents' names matched the credit cards from the woman's wallet, confirming Jake's worst fears. His hands trembled as he compared the names in the article to those on the credit cards. It was undeniable. The woman in the Mustang was the missing mother. This revelation hit him hard, but he knew he had to take this information to the police. The mystery was far from over, but Jake was determined to see it through. The next morning, Jake received a call from Detective Harris asking to meet. "Mr. Lawson, we need to discuss what you found," Harris said, his tone serious. Jake's heart raced, wondering what new information the detective had uncovered. He agreed to meet at the station, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread. The mystery was growing deeper, and Jake hoped he was finally close to some answers. Jake arrived at the station and was led into a small, dimly lit room. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the air seemed heavy with unspoken questions. Detective Harris sat at a metal table, a folder resting in front of him. "Take a seat," he said, motioning to the chair across from him. Jake sat down, his eyes locked on the folder, wondering what it held. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, and he could feel his heart racing in anticipation. Detective Harris opened the folder in front of him, revealing a collection of photographs and papers, worn with age. "We've been looking into the case you brought to us," he began, his voice steady. Jake leaned in, eager to decipher the details, his eyes scanning the contents. The detective's serious expression made it clear that whatever was in the folder held crucial information, perhaps the missing piece to unravel the entire mystery. "We found something," Harris said gravely, sliding a photograph across the table. Jake picked it up, his hands trembling. The photo showed a family, smiling and radiating happiness, but there was something unsettling about it, as if the image concealed hidden secrets. "Take a close look," Harris urged in a low, serious tone. Jake studied the photo carefully, searching for any familiar details. It was another picture of the baby, this time with a family. The same baby from the wallet photo was cradled in the arms of a woman whose face stirred a haunting sense of familiarity in Jake. Beside her stood a man with a warm smile, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Jake's heart pounded as he studied their faces, an inexplicable connection forming with these strangers. The mystery surrounding the baby and the abandoned car was growing even more profound. Jake stared at the photograph, a strange familiarity washing over him as he took in the faces. The woman's gentle smile and the man's protective stance tugged at something deep within, as though he should recognize them. Yet they were strangers, or so he thought. The longer he looked, the stronger the sense of déjà vu became, leaving him unsettled and teetering on the edge of a revelation he couldn't quite grasp. "Do you recognize them?" Harris asked, his gaze fixed intently on Jake, studying his every reaction. Jake shifted uneasily in his seat, his mind racing to make sense of the image before him. The detective's piercing eyes seemed to bore into him, as though willing him to uncover some hidden memory. Jake inhaled deeply, struggling to steady the chaotic whirlwind of thoughts and emotions churning within him, desperate to find clarity in the storm. Shaking his head, Jake admitted, "No, I don't know them," his voice tinged with frustration and confusion. Harris nodded, his expression unreadable but serious. "That's okay, Jake. Sometimes these things take time," the detective reassured him. Though disappointed, Jake felt a renewed determination bubbling within. He knew this mystery wasn't over, and he was resolved to uncover the truth no matter how long it took. Despite his denial, an uneasy feeling lingered in Jake's chest, as if he was on the verge of unearthing a deeply buried memory. The photograph, the baby, the abandoned Mustang. It all seemed inexplicably connected, forming a puzzle he couldn't yet solve. "Why do I feel like I'm missing something important?" Jake murmured, almost to himself. Harris observed him silently, his expression thoughtful, recognizing that Jake's search for answers was far from over. The truth was out there, tantalizingly close, but still just out of reach. The mystery of the abandoned Mustang and the vanished family weighed heavily on Jake's mind as he left the station. The puzzle consumed his thoughts, each clue pulling him deeper into its enigmatic grip. Every new detail only seemed to amplify his questions. What had truly happened to this family, and why did their story feel so inexplicably personal? Determined to find answers, Jake resolved to push forward, no matter how unsettling or life-changing the truth might prove to be. That night, Jake lay awake, his mind consumed by thoughts of the family and the abandoned Mustang. No matter how hard he tried, sleep eluded him. Every time he closed his eyes, vivid images of the baby's picture, the smiling family, and the car hidden in the woods replayed in his mind. The unanswered questions gnawed at him, each one more insistent than the last, leaving him restless and frustrated with the truth still just out of reach. In the early hours, Jake dreamed vividly of wandering through a dense forest as a child. The towering trees loomed above him, their shadows stretching endlessly, creating an atmosphere both eerie and strangely familiar. He felt small and vulnerable, yet there was an unshakable sense of connection to the place. The dream was so vivid he could almost hear the rustling leaves, feel the crunch under his feet, and sense the cool breeze brushing against his face. It didn't feel like a dream at all. It felt like a memory. In the dream, Jake found himself holding hands with a woman whose face remained hidden in the shadows. Her grip was firm and comforting, steadying him as they moved through the dense, foreboding forest. He tilted his head, trying desperately to glimpse her features, but they stayed frustratingly obscured. He wanted to ask, "Who are you?" but the words stuck in his throat, unspoken. Despite her anonymity, the connection between them felt profound and unshakable, leaving him both comforted and haunted by the mystery of her identity. The dream clung to Jake like a shadow, unnervingly vivid in its detail. Even as he sat up in bed, the sensation of the woman's guiding hand and the forest's enveloping darkness felt almost tangible. Though she hadn't spoken, he could faintly recall the echo of her presence, as if her unspoken words lingered just beyond reach. This strange encounter deepened Jake's unease, intensifying his need to piece together the fragments of the mystery. What did it mean? How did this dream tie into the abandoned car, the baby's photo, and the missing family? The questions pressed against him like a weight he couldn't ignore. Jake's heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as he sifted through the old boxes in his parents' attic. Each item seemed like a potential clue, a piece of the puzzle he was desperately trying to solve. Dusty photo albums, old letters, and forgotten mementos filled the boxes, each one a fragment of a life he thought he knew. His flashlight flickered as he worked, its beam illuminating forgotten memories. With every object he uncovered, his determination grew stronger. He was certain that somewhere in these forgotten treasures lay the answers he sought. The past was calling, and Jake knew it was only a matter of time before the truth would reveal itself. Jake meticulously combed through the old family documents and photo albums scattered across the attic floor. The papers crinkled under his touch as he flipped through them. Letters from long ago, faded snapshots, and keepsakes that had been tucked away for decades. Each piece of memorabilia told a story, but none seemed to offer the answers he so desperately needed. The attic, full of memories, felt like a vault of untold truths, yet the secrets he sought remained elusive. But Jake's resolve didn't waver. He continued his search, knowing deep down that the key to the mystery was hidden somewhere in these forgotten relics. Jake's fingers trembled as he carefully unfolded the document, its edges brittle with age. The paper was yellowed and the ink was faded, but the words on it were still legible. It was a birth certificate. His heart skipped a beat as he scanned the details. Everything lined up with the mystery he had been unraveling. The name on the certificate matched the baby in the photograph, the one in the abandoned Mustang. His pulse quickened as he realized what this meant. This document, hidden away for so long, could be the key to solving everything. The connection between the family, the baby, and the mystery in the woods was now undeniable. Jake's hands shook as he scanned the adoption papers, his mind struggling to process the reality before him. The dates matched his birth, the signatures confirming what seemed impossible. He had always believed his parents were his biological ones, but now, this document revealed a truth he had never even imagined. The photograph of him as a baby, tucked between the papers, only deepened the confusion. It was clear that this family, whoever they were, had once been a part of his life. He couldn't understand how his parents had kept this secret from him for so long, or why they had hidden the truth in such an obscure corner of their home. The answers he had been searching for were now more complex, and the mystery was more personal than ever. Jake felt a surge of emotions as he stared at the adoption papers, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Confusion clouded his mind, and anger simmered beneath the surface. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. How could his parents have kept such an important part of his life a secret for so long? He had always believed they were his biological family, and now everything he knew about his past seemed to crumble. His first instinct was to confront them, to demand answers. But even as he thought about it, another truth emerged. He needed to know who his biological family was. What had happened to them? Why had they disappeared? The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, and Jake knew that his search for answers was far from over. The adoption papers only deepened Jake's confusion and urgency. Who were his biological parents? Why had they given him up for adoption? And how did the abandoned Mustang, along with the missing family, tie into the mystery of his past? With each new question, the puzzle grew more complex, and the sense of urgency intensified. Jake's desire to uncover the truth was no longer just about solving a mystery. It had become a personal quest to understand who he truly was and to uncover the secrets of his origin. The search for answers was no longer just a curiosity, it was something he needed to resolve, no matter the cost. Jake's heart raced as his parents revealed the truth. "We were very close," his mother said, her voice trembling with emotion as tears filled her eyes. His father nodded solemnly, his voice soft. "When your parents disappeared, we didn't know what to do." Jake felt a heavy ache in his chest as the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place. The secrets they had kept for so long were starting to make sense, but the more he learned, the more questions arose. The truth was out there, but Jake still needed to understand the full scope of what had happened to his biological family and how it all connected to him. Jake's parents explained that they had adopted him when no one could locate his biological parents. "We thought it was the best thing to do," his mother said. "You needed a family and we loved you like our own." A wave of gratitude and sadness washed over Jake as he processed their words, but the mystery of his biological parents' disappearance felt even more pressing now. "We never stopped hoping they would come back for you," his father added softly. Jake's parents gave him the name of the orphanage where he had stayed briefly. "It's called St. Mary's," his mother said, handing him an old piece of paper with the address. As he stared at the paper, a surge of determination coursed through him. The orphanage held crucial pieces of the puzzle about his past, and he knew he had to visit to uncover any remaining secrets about his early years and biological family. Determined to uncover more about his origins, Jake set out for the orphanage. The long drive gave him ample time to reflect on his parents, the revelations, and everything that had led him here. As he neared the building, its worn exterior seemed to hold the weight of countless untold stories. Jake parked his car and took a deep breath, steeling himself to face whatever truths might lie inside St. Mary's. Jake's heart raced with anticipation as he climbed the steps, hoping that the orphanage would hold the answers he desperately sought. When he reached the door, it was opened by a kind, elderly woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Thompson, the caretaker. "I remember you," she said with a warm smile, and for a moment Jake felt a flicker of hope. "Come inside," she continued. "There are some things you need to see," leading him further into the old building. At the orphanage, Jake was greeted by Mrs. Thompson, the caretaker, who remembered him as a baby. "You are such a quiet child," she said with a warm smile. Jake felt a wave of gratitude toward her, grateful for the care she had provided during his earliest days. "I have something for you," she continued, leading him to a small room filled with boxes. "These were with you when you were found," she added as she began rummaging through the contents, offering him a glimpse into his past. Mrs. Thompson handed Jake a box filled with items that had been with him when he was found. His hands trembled as he opened it, revealing a collection of objects from his infancy. He sifted through them slowly, each item evoking a sense of nostalgia. At first, the contents seemed ordinary, small toys, a blanket, a rattle, but Jake could feel that they held significant clues to his past, hidden memories just waiting to be uncovered. Among the items was a small, torn teddy bear, its fabric worn from years of love and use. Jake held the bear carefully, feeling an unexpected surge of emotion as he gazed at it. "I remember this," he whispered as memories flooded back. The bear had been his constant companion, a source of comfort during those uncertain early days. It felt like a tangible connection to a past he had nearly forgotten, a symbol of the love and care that had surrounded him even when he was just a baby. Jake also discovered a note, written in his mother's handwriting, that promised they would return for him. His heart raced as he read the words, full of hope and love. "We'll come back for you, our precious boy." Tears welled up in his eyes as he held the note. It was a promise left unfulfilled, a heartbreaking testament to the love his parents had for him, even though they had disappeared without a trace. The note deepened the mystery of their absence, but also reminded him of the bond they had shared. The note stirred a complex blend of hope and sorrow in Jake as he pondered the truth about his parents. He gently placed it back in the box, recognizing its significance as an essential piece of his past. "Thank you," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "This means more than you can imagine, Mrs." Thompson nodded quietly, fully aware of the gravity of his discovery. Jake knew that while this was an important step, his journey to uncover the truth was far from complete. Mrs. Thompson handed Jake a faded newspaper clipping about a couple's mysterious disappearance during a family vacation. The fragile, yellowed paper felt delicate in his hands as he read the headline and glanced at the grainy photo beneath it. "This might give you more insight," she said softly. As Jake scanned the words on the page, a chill ran down his spine, realizing that the story hinted at the start of a mystery that had haunted him his entire life. Jake's eyes widened as he read the article, his heart racing when he saw a picture of his biological parents. The resemblance was unmistakable. "This is them," he whispered, gently tracing their faces with his finger. The article detailed their sudden disappearance, leaving behind their baby boy. A flood of emotions overwhelmed Jake: shock, sadness, and a growing determination to uncover the truth. This article was a critical piece of the puzzle he had been desperately trying to solve. The Mustang he had found was also pictured in the article, linking his discovery directly to his past. The car, once vibrant, now stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. "It's the same car," Jake murmured, his mind racing with connections. The realization hit him hard. His journey had come full circle. The abandoned Mustang in the forest was no longer just a relic. It was a key to unlocking the mystery of his history. "You were adopted shortly after this incident," Mrs. Thompson explained gently. Jake nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. "Your parents vanished without a trace, and you were found alone in the woods." Her eyes were filled with compassion. Jake felt a deep sense of loss for the family he never knew. While this revelation brought clarity, it also left him with even more questions about what had truly happened that fateful day. She revealed that Jake's parents had vanished without a trace, leaving him behind in the woods. "The authorities searched for them, but they were never found," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice tinged with sadness. Jake's heart ached at the thought of his parents disappearing so mysteriously. The story was far from over, and he knew he had to dig deeper. The answers were out there, waiting to be discovered. Stunned by the revelation, Jake left the orphanage with a heavy heart, clutching the items from his past. Each step felt heavier than the last as he walked to his car, the old teddy bear and the note from his mother weighing on him like constant reminders of the family he had lost. As he drove away, his mind swirled with emotions, grief, confusion, and a deep need for answers. He knew his journey was far from over. He had to piece together the rest of his story. Jake returned to the Mustang, feeling an undeniable connection to the family he never knew. The car, now a symbol of his mysterious past, stood silent among the trees, weathered by time and neglect. Running his fingers along the rusted surface, Jake imagined the life his parents had once planned, the dreams they might have had for him. He sat inside for a moment, the weight of their disappearance sinking in. This car was his only tangible link to them, and it fueled his determination to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Jake made a silent vow to honor his lost parents by uncovering the truth behind their disappearance. A renewed sense of purpose filled him as he stood there, the weight of his parents' memory pushing him forward. "I won't let this mystery remain unsolved," he promised himself. The path ahead would be difficult, but the need to understand his past was undeniable. Leaving the Mustang behind, Jake felt more determined than ever to piece together the fragments of his family's story, knowing that every step he took brought him closer to the answers he desperately sought. Jake's resolve was unshakable as he vowed to continue his search for answers, no matter how long it took. He would examine every detail, follow every lead, and leave no stone unturned. "For you, Mom and Dad," he whispered to the sky, feeling their presence with him in that moment. Though the path ahead was uncertain, his heart was steadfast. He was determined to uncover the truth and bring closure to the mysterious past of his family, no matter the obstacle. The journey had only just begun, but he was ready to face whatever lay ahead.